Well, welcome back to another video on the channel. And as you can tell by the title, today I finally tried making or drawing myself a new and more updated map of Rain World, because the last time I tried to do this, I hadn't even discovered Industrial Complex. I finished this after Survivor. Now, I didn't do any silly drawings for this one because I had decided mainly to focus on like shape and general accuracy vibes. And we're going to jump right into this because I have already made it. So, as you can see here, we have ourselves the outskirts. Up here we have Industrial Complex. We've got 4 connections here. Right here says Outer Expanse because I don't know what's past here. This is where I spawn and Spearmaster is supposed to be. It's supposed to be at least. It might connect to Subterranean, like I don't know. Now, let's follow sort of the path towards looks to the moon. So, I always, not always, in Survivor and everything, I know how to get from outskirts to drainage. And here's drainage. Kind of under outskirts a bit. It's definitely more like underground and underwatery feel. While, of course, above outskirts or like, you know, nearby / next to outskirts is the Industrial Complex. I noticed there's kind of a bunch of 3 main towers there. The third one sort of more or less connects to Chimney Canopy. Of course, drainage here, we have this is also connects to Chimney Canopy and drainage because this is supposed to represent sort of the gutter. This is falling down the gutter. And of course, these 2 entrances are really close to each other. There's kind of a tower here. If we go up the Chimney Canopy, we can see there's bunch of stuff over here kind of, but that's okay. We're going back down. We're making our way towards looks to the moon still. Industrial Complex, you got to get all the way to the other side of it. You got to go up a bit, to get to the Shaded Citadel. There is I'm pretty sure there is a way into Shaded Citadel from here, but mainly you're supposed to get to garbage waste from here. Or if you're like me, I go garbage waste from drainage. Please ignore the ambiguous, amorphous pipe yard, which I did not give a shape. We'll get to that. But anyways, here we have garbage wastes, which is fine. And of course you get across garbage waste, you get shoreline, Shaded Citadel as well. This kind of doesn't really make sense. I think I got the garbage waste's overall shape kind of wrong, but so I kind of messed up this shape a bit to try and fit. I think this is actually further in here into Shaded Citadel, like this door. I don't know how that happens, but I tried my best. I really did. So then we've got, all right, I go from garbage waste shoreline. Here's sort of where shoreline is. There's going to be a bunch of water. There's going to be down here is going to be the areas underneath. And of course we also have Shaded Citadel, which is, you know, good and fine, kind of overlapping it. There's a bit of a tower area. And this of course is where it connects back into shoreline. This is the way I usually go. And if you see down here, there's a path down into Subterranean and also a path down into Pipe Yard, which as you can see, wraps around all the way over here, Pipe Yard. Pipe Yard is the Pipe Yard shoreline thing is the only connection I actually have on here. I know ambiguously it's going to be a bunch of, this is sort of where, this is genuinely like a big path that you just follow down once you're in Pipe Yard, because I think this is like the sump area or something. And once you're over here, I think there's probably a connection to like Industrial Complex or Chimney Canopy. I've lost track of it sort of. But yeah, we've got those down there. We've got this up there. Shaded Citadel, this is going to be sort of, this is where the water sort of is with like the big plant things down here that eat you. And then you go across all where the scissor people are, memory crypts. You get up and this will take you to exterior. However, we're going to keep going this way, and I don't like the distance between here and here. I feel like this should be pretty closer, but for the map, I've had to change some things. As you can see, submerged superstructure is, you know, right before looks to the moon. Looks to the moon is going to be in this corner. And there's technically a gate up here. You can't go up through this gate into submerged superstructure or looks to the moon. I put it on the map as submerged superstructure. I'll get to why later. But generally looks to the moon's down here. You would need a key to get up through there, I guess. And then down here we have the regular connection in. And submerged superstructure is probably a lot bigger than this. I've just sort of made it this big in comparison. Now let's go back up into exterior because this is supposed to represent the leg. This sort of weird, awkward section over here is supposed to represent the exterior, or not the exterior, the precipice. And then over this way, I added a bunch of these circles. I noticed when I was doing this, if you can't tell, I actually opened up the game, and the reason I got all these funky shapes is because I was actually trying to vaguely make the shapes match where you could go in the actual game. I was trying to fit the puzzle pieces together in the correctest shape, and I'm pretty proud of what I got so far, even if I'm not happy with some parts of it. Anyways, yeah, the leg shows this should be pretty high up because we got 5 pebbles up here, right? You can see Metropolis is mainly up here. I didn't draw any of the city or whatever. Metropolis is probably like a lot higher, but similar to Summer Superstructure, I didn't make it to scale. If you can't tell, exterior is vaguely off of the map in game that I got. 5 pebbles is literally just me filling in the rest of this space. I didn't map it at all. I assume this can go anywhere because it's just the entirety of the interior of the superstructure, I'm pretty sure. I will also say, until I made this map, I never realized how like actually exterior is. Exterior, you're literally going up the leg. You're going up like basically the underneath of, the 5 pebbles superstructure. And then the wall, you go up the side, and then of course you can go up the top a little bit. I never realized it was shaped like this. This sort of area threw me off, but like there being like walls and things and stuff inside me, around me, I never realized that the shape of this was literally around where 5 pebbles was. Like, I guess the 5 pebbles area. So that's cool. One thing that's interesting to know as well is when I was in Rivulet, right? Obviously 5 pebbles is more replaced with the rot. I didn't mop out 5 pebbles accurately onto this map here, so I didn't change anything for the rot either. That's just in my head. However, Memory Crypts, which on my map ends up around here, actually has some of these like circles fallen down. So I think the rot is actually making like the structure fall apart, which obviously makes sense. But yeah, that's why there's also like lizards down there in Memory Crypts as well, is because they're the lizards from up here, That's why in Shaded Citadel, or at least Memory Crypts, there's like lightning and thunder because it's from underneath of here, because it comes from like 5 pebbles, which is directly above. Now, Garbage Waste, I didn't want to be directly beneath. Shaded Citadel, I'll say it's probably shaded because of 5 pebbles right above it, right? That's probably why it's so dark. But Garbage Waste also has to be pretty close to 5 pebbles because it's kind of where he dumps his stuff. I mean, I just kind of realized right now in the wall equivalent of Looks to the Moon, on Looks to the Moon's left side, I noticed she had a bunch of in Spearmaster, she had a bunch of garbage just like falling down from that. So maybe this is like literally, the pipes where 5 pebbles also dumps this, and that's maybe why it lands in Garbage Waste. I don't know. Just a thought, just an idea. Anyways, we're going back over here because we're going to check out Chimney Canopy for real. We kind of checked out the bottom. We've got the gutter. We've got this. And then, of course, we've got this sort of upper section, which gets across. The only color I added to this is I have myself a cloud to represent, like, this is kind of where the clouds are at. This is all sort of under the clouds, ish. And Sky Islands is pretty high compared to... I mean, Chimney Canopy is still pretty up there, but these 3 are kind of like the only areas that are that high. You can't keep going this way per se. Well, I mean, you kind of can, but I'll get to that in a sec. Anyways, up here, this is where we've sort of ended Spearmaster. It's the broadcast tower, communications array, wherever you say it. You go far enough down, you go there. We got an entrance to farm arrays down here, which is pretty cool and fun. This is the connection. I still don't know what it is, but start of Spearmaster, if we remember. Outskirts, there's some scavengers over here, I'm pretty sure. That takes you to farm arrays. And on the actual map, I didn't really draw it here, but there's kind of like 2 parallel lines-ish, like one above the other, physically located. Probably it's supposed to be 3D, like they're next to each other or near each other. But basically, I'm pretty sure there's just a ton of arrays over here that are probably, for farming. Big surprise there. And we go far enough this way, and you've got a drop here, here's the big drop into Subterranean. Notice if we keep kind of going over here, this is roughly ish where the subway cars are. I don't know how my subway system actually interacts with 5 pebbles. I guess this is just underneath it all, which, that's fine, I guess. I'm pretty sure there probably would have been subways in the sky at some point, maybe. At least Outer Expanse seems like it, but we'll get to that later. Actually, we'll get to that now because this is the entrance to Outer Expanse. Now this This one was tricky because it kind of seems like you have to go down to subterranean, right? You have to kind of go down here. And Farm Arrays is sort of surface level. Subterranean is underground. And then, so Outer Expanse is kind of a mixture. From what I've seen, it looked like the entrance to Outer Expanse here, nothing really got that much higher than it in Sunken Pier. So I wasn't comfortable adding like a ton of height. Like, I assume that these kind of like generally, like maybe I put this too far down. I don't know. These are generally, Outer Expanse should still be definitely like surface level. Either that or it's like a lower, but that's probably just an error of my map. This probably should be higher, especially when we get far enough in Outer Expanse. We eventually get to be cloud level as well, you know? So, and that's obviously not represented here. Outer Expanse is really big. In any case, we're going back to Subterranean because there's just a huge, you just go all the way this way. This is supposed to represent sort of filtration. And this is where we actually have, you know, there's actually a connection to drainage from here somehow. And then of course, if we go all the way back over here and then it takes us back to shoreline, that seemed to match up pretty well. So all this is pretty good. Let's just like, I can't even get it all like on my screen. Super good. Let's just like take a look at this here. I am pretty proud of my map. There's probably still, I mean, I'm not proud of Pipe Yard. That's my biggest mistake on this. Anyways, can't be complete with Subterranean if you can't mention the big drop and then the other big drop and then the big, you know, the golden fluid that leads to this fluid. You can't have a map of Rain World without talking about the bottom of the world. Look, we've got the sky up here. We've got the tops of the superstructures. We've got the surface, sort of surface level here in the middle where most of the things are at. And then deep enough underground, we have ourselves the void fluid, the void sea, and all the entities within it and their smiling little faces. Now, the thing that actually prompted me to make this map, and here's going to be my last thing for the video, is actually in Spearmaster, how the map, well, there's obviously a way that the map differs. Obviously, shoreline here is waterfront facility. I will also say, I'm not sure, like my biggest inconsistency about the map is that I feel like the leg is kind of, like with Shaded Citadel, like the leg is kind of like over here. It's pretty close to Looks to the Moon. Because I can get to the leg pretty fast from Looks to the Moon. I just go over here, I just go through the Shaded Citadel gate, and then I make my way through, and I go right a lot to get to the leg. So that takes me even closer to over here, even though I don't think there's that much space in between here and here. So it's like, basically I'm thinking like, Looks at the Moon and Five Pebbles like actually might be way closer than I think. However, I can't deny that these, like, with the comparison of all the space I've, you know, was able to freely give over here and for it to line up fairly well, I cannot deny that Five Pebbles and Looks to the Moon do seem like they're pretty close together. Maybe not this close together, but pretty close together. And what that means, I think, at least in theory, is because in Spearmaster, this entire like submerged superstructure is going to be up here. Probably a little, like maybe it's a little to the right, because maybe it could have like fallen forward a bit. I'll also say the shoreline being waterfront facility doesn't make sense in my map as well. Shaded Citadel kind of does, because Shaded Citadel, in my theory, is at least, you know, shaded because of it's under Five Pebbles superstructure. And however, also in my thing, shoreline is also under it. Probably, maybe it's just more like next to it, or like, you know, 3D next to it. Like there's a little shore across. You know, Shaded Citadel is directly under, while shoreline is maybe more 3D. I don't know. Regardless of how the dimensions bend, this entire area was up here at some point. And this area leads me to the precipice in Spearmaster. And it would have been up here-ish on my map. And this precipice and this precipice are very close. And I think, because they're both called the precipice, they're probably the same precipice. And this makes complete sense to me, because Five Pebbles and Looks to the Moon would, like, I don't know, it just makes so much sense to me. They clearly would have, like, a way to get across them, so. I know I fully didn't explore it, and mostly because, like, I don't know, I figured out I wanted to go to Waterfront Facility, and I was like, oh, I know where that is. So I didn't exactly get to that in my playthrough, but also I'm just thinking, like, it feels like they would connect because like I don't know, looks like the moon is standing. This is probably Spearmaster's probably the only slug cat in which there's probably going to be, if there's going to be a bridge between them, there's probably a bridge between them. And so, you know, if I were to do a second playthrough of Spearmaster, I think I would test that out. So yeah, there's my map. If for whatever reason you like this video, feel free to let me know. I'm still not quite sure why I made this video, or like how to make it more interesting than I did. I just thought it'd be fun to know. I made myself a map, and I'll see you in the next one. Farewell.